Hello and welcome to Keep Right On, a Birmingham City podcast brought to you from us here at Birmingham Live. I'm Brian Dick and I'm joined as ever by my colleague and co-host and Birmingham City reporter Alex Dicken. And the observant among you will have noticed a third face down at the bottom of the screen. Joe Chapman, all-round good egg and West Bromwich Albion expert. Joe, thank you very much for joining us.
No, pleasure. Thank you. Lovely to see your faces.
Well, that doesn't get said often, very often.
Not to
Joe,
you,
Joe, all right. Just you need to know the password for to carry on with this podcast. I'm going to ask you this question. And you need to give us the right answer. Chimneys, yes or no?
Oh God. It's growing on me, put it that way. I was a little bit kind of taken aback when I first saw the photos emerge at the back end of last week. But actually, the more I look at it and the more detail you go into in terms of the actual interior of the stadium and what they've got planned for within those chimneys, I think it's actually it's certainly pretty unique. Yeah, I quite like it. I think by the time it's actually in place and it's not a graphic on a screen, you look at it and go, well, yeah, that's going to be a second city landmark for sure.
Alex, is that enough to get him in the Dick and Van Dyke Appreciation Society?
Long-winded answer.
I think it is, yeah. I think it is. I think Chapman explained it perfectly.
Joe, you can stay. Obviously we're speaking to Joe ahead of this weekend's this Wednesday's clash with West Bromwich Albion, and Alex is here to report back from yet another 4-goal salvo at St Andrews. Alex, I didn't ask whether you're well. I'm assuming you are, given the fare that Blues are serving up at the moment.
Yeah, again, 4 goals, third game in a row at home, 13-4 in the Championship. Home form is second best in the league, behind Coventry, and they are starting to look a really, really useful Championship team now. All those kind of teething processes early season when the new signs came in seem to be over and vying themselves out, and they have partnerships all over the field. And they were absolutely miles better than Norwich City. I actually expected a little bit more from Norwich, given that they were under Philip Clement for the first time. I thought they'd be maybe a little bit more defensively sound than they have been previously, but you know the floodgates opened from the first minute really, and Blues could have scored straight away from Damari Gray. They were ahead inside 3 minutes, having completely opened Norwich up down the left, and another goal soon arrived in 20 minutes. You know, the only attack Norwich had in that first half, in that first half an hour, they scored from against the run of play. And to be fair to them, they had another chance right after they could have taken through Sargent, but for a great block from Phil Neumann. But then, end of the first half, Blues scored again with Dutch, and from then on, second half, it was going to be a procession, wasn't it? And 4-1, they really took their foot off the gas at maybe 60 minutes. It could have been anything had a first half penalty at 2-0 gone to Blues that should have gone to Blues. But another thoroughly enjoyable 90 minutes at St Andrews.
Alex, you mentioned the lack of new manager bounce there with Philippe Clement, and you also mentioned the lack of defensive solidity at Norwich. Harry Darling, who was linked with Blues, and I think Blues are genuinely interested in the summer. He played for Norwich. I'm going to ask you this question now, Alex. Would you take Neumann or Darling?
On that evidence, I don't think anyone would take Darling over Neumann. But I must admit, I did feel a little bit sorry for Darling, because we've seen him at Championship level over the last few years, and he's more than capable. But he was playing next to Shane Duffy, who's well over the wrong side of 30 now, and wasn't really helping him a great deal. So you only have to look at the 4th goal Blues scored to see that Duffy, was struggling. So I think it would be unfair to judge Darling. But on Neumann, last 5 or 6 games since that Preston game, I think he's been outstanding. And there was, the best defensive moment of the match came when he denied, I think it was Sargent. I might be wrong.
Yeah.
But a goal scoring opportunity. So top marks to Neumann.
Yeah. Obviously, there's been 4 goals in the last 3 home games, and it's kind of coincided with Marvin Dutch being in fit and ready to start. Do we conflate those two facts and go, Dutch is the reason that Blues are scoring 4 times every time at home now? It's a bit more nuanced than that, right?
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is completely getting the best out of the three players around him, isn't he? Patrick Roberts, Damari Gray, and most importantly, Jay Stansfield, who, I think has got 3 in his last 3 again now. So they look a really, really good unit going forward. Dutch is linking the play fantastically well. And the numbers with him and without him are ridiculous. He started 5 games in the league. Blues have won 4 of those games. They've scored 14 of their 24 league goals with Marvin Dutch in the 11. So, it doesn't take a genius to work out that, if you keep him fit, you're probably going to have a better chance over the course of a season. And, luckily for Blues, the partnership between him and Stansfield, which, Stansfield had issues at the start of the season finding his way into a team with a partner and where he was going to play. Was he going to be a 10 or a 9? That partnership looks outstanding now. And to be fair, over the last 4 games, I don't think there'd be a better partnership, a front duo in the league.
I will open this to the floor. Complete the sentence. Marvin Dutch and Jay Stansfield, the best Blues strike partnership since. Joe, do you want to have a go at that?
Just thinking off the top of my head what we've had recent years with Blues. When I think of decent championship strikers for Blues in the last 10, 15 years, Clayton Donaldson springs to my mind, but I don't remember him particularly being in a partnership with anybody. You'd have Wes Thomas or whatever playing off him sometimes, but Donaldson and Djukovic, I suppose, probably towards the end of the Gary Rowett era, played well together, didn't they?
Donaldson. I think of Donaldson with John Terrell. They had that good season in 2015-16, I think it was. Terrell very much as the 10, Donaldson as the do it all, one up front. I think they combined for 19 league goals and Blues finished 10th. Alex, I know you've got an alternative suggestion, haven't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't really look beyond Shea Adams and Lucas Djukovic, can you? In the 18-19, Brian?
Let me think. I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
It was the Gary Monk season, wasn't it?
Yeah. So
Adams.
Yeah. So I think Adams got 22 and Djukovic got 14. So 36 goals between 2 strikers. I mean, if Dutch and Stansfield get those kind of numbers this season, then Blues are definitely going to be in the conversation, because these days championship strikers rarely get above 12.
Yeah, it is down, isn't it, these days? I will offer you, or offer the audience, Marlon King and Chris Wood from 2011-12. Now, Wood was on loan from Albion, wasn't he, Joe? That was the Europa League season.
Yes, it was only for half a season though, Brian, wasn't it? It was. That's right.
Redistributed
in the second half of the season for some reason. And I remember thinking, I think he was probably good for 20 goals that season if he'd have stayed for the entirety of it.
Well, he was 11 by the time he left in January. That's right, and I think they got about 18 or 19 between them. Incredibly, obviously, Chris Wood is known for that. For the winner at Bruges away, isn't he? As Blues became the first English team to win at that stadium. Just check that out. And neither Wood nor King even started that game. The strike partnership to start that game was, go on, anybody? Alex, you won't get this.
I'm going to go Zigic.
Zigic was one of them. I will buy a bag of sweets for anyone who can get the other one.
Is it a genuine forward? Is it?
Yeah, forward? It is a forward. Yeah, it's a striker. Yeah.
Forward. Oh.
This is going to make really good podcasting. This is radio silence for the next 20 minutes. Shall I give
the Burks and the Elliots and the Beausejours and I remember that team. I'm trying to wrap my brains for. Would it have, testing your memory here, Brian? Would it have been a player that had signed that summer as part of the Houghton overhaul, or was he there in the Premier League?
He wasn't there in the Premier League. No. Did he sign that summer? He did sign that summer, July. Yeah, signed on a free transfer from Inverness Caledonian Thistle.
Oh, Adam Rooney.
Oh, Joe.
That's
why, Alex. That's why Joe's my favourite. Adam Rooney and Nikola Zigic started up front together against Bruges. Yeah. Let's bring it. Put a bow on this. The combination between Dutch and Stansfield is electric, isn't it? They just seem to have that. Can we say after so few games that they have a chemistry? It feels like they do. Yeah,
that's what Chris Davis said. I think we all kind of presumed Dutch would play as the 10 to begin with, didn't we? And Stansfield go back to his position as a 9. I think it works with both of them there. Stansfield starting as a 10, but he's still making those runs beyond, as we saw for the fourth goal. He's still getting into those positions. And they essentially, when Blues are in possession, are a front two. With the way that Iwata has this license from right back to go and fill in, in midfield. So that becomes a three-man midfield. Mark Leonard was moving forward, so you've got two number 8s there with Leonard and Iwata. They feel very much to be in sync, I'd say.
I'm glad you mentioned Iwata there, because if you look back at the highlights, Iwata's in the penalty area for the first 2 goals, isn't he? And the one that Demarai Gray actually lays on for Dux, the first goal, he could have easily pulled it back for Iwata. Iwata's late running into those positions, is a real characteristic of it. You gave neither Stansfield nor Dux your player of the match, though, did you? Who did you give it to and why?
Well, no, because I was sat there with about half an hour to go thinking, I'm going to give out a 10 here. If one of these two gets the hat-trick, I'm giving out a 10. So Dux goes off, and then I was thinking Stansfield gets the hat-trick, he's going to get a 10. Then he goes off. So Demarai Gray, for me, I just thought he had a brilliant game right from the start. He was the first player to kind of set the ball rolling, get a shot away and work the goalkeeper. He then ran in behind to collect a pass and cross for Dux to score the opening goal. He was involved, I think, in 3 of the 4 goals, 2 direct assists, and he put the cross in that eventually led to Marvin Duck's second goal before half-time. So I've been kind of waiting for him to have this breakout game and, really join the party. We've seen Patrick Roberts absolutely flying on the other side recently. And completely overshadowing Gray, really. So for Gray to have this game where he just kind of lit it up and ripped up his fullback, and Jack Stacey is a decent championship fullback, I was very impressed. And, he could have probably maybe got himself a goal as well. So a really, really good performance. And I think there were 4 players that were man of the match material, Dux and Stansfield being 2, Tommy Doyle being the 4th. So I think Gray just edged it for me.
Tommy Doyle absurdly snubbed by the
disgrace. It was a disgrace
by the Blues media team. Joe, have you ever given a 10 out of 10 in a player rating?
Twice, I think. I don't think I did it any more than that while I was covering Albion. They beat Swansea 5-1 before Christmas, the year that they went up on the Slaven Bilic. Mateus Pereira scored 1 and got 4 assists. So that kind of spoke for itself. And then I remember Bilic's last game in the Premier League behind closed doors. They drew 1-1 away at Man City, and Sam Johnston was just insane. Like he looked like England's number 1 that night. He made an outrageous save with practically the last kick of the game. I think it was to stop Gundogan, and therefore they would be the only 2 off the top of my head. I think Carl Bartley went very close when they beat Wolves at Molineux in the Premier League, but generally speaking, that they are one-off matches that you would get maybe once a season tops. But the 9 out of 10s were a little bit easy to give out, because it's quite a big deal, isn't it, to give out 10 out of 10? You're basically saying it's a totally perfect performance. I think I've probably said this already on this podcast. The only player I've ever given a 10 out of 10 was Demarai Gray 1.0. When he was a young lad coming through, and he scored a hat-trick against Reading. Many years ago. So, rare indeed. The league position, Joe, you can chip in with us as well. The lie of the land at the moment, Blues are up to 9th now with 24 points. They are only, I think, 1 point outside the playoffs. Yeah, indeed. They've got 24. Hull are 6th with 25. They're only 3 points off 3rd, Stoke City in 3rd. Albion, Joe, are down in
languishing. We'd say languishing.
They are languishing in 17th, but only 3 points behind Ipswich in 8th. Languishing with a small L. Alex, what does that say to you, the table at the moment, about Blues and the state of the Championship?
I think still, I never thought we'd kind of see gaps appear before the international breaks were over. I think now is probably over Christmas where you're going to see gaps start to appear. Blues are in a very good position. They've managed to kind of cling on when they're in that bad run of form in September, where they went on a run of winning maybe 1 in 7. and they lost maybe 4 of those games. So they did well to kind of stay on the coattails of those teams in the playoff mix at that point. And now they've won 4 of 6. So they've just, gradually moved up while everyone else hasn't been winning. So I think they're in a really good position. If you look at the Middlesbrough game a couple of weeks ago, Blues could quite easily have won that match. They had the better of the chances in the 90 minutes and could easily have won. If they win that game, they're on the same points as Middlesbrough, who are currently second. So they both will be on 27 points. So it just kind of tells you how close and tight the championship is. Albion, who I'm sure in about 10 minutes, Chappers will tell us, are having a really poor season, but they're still only 3 points behind Blues because of the way they started the season. So it's difficult to kind of see who's going to come through at this point. I think there are some teams in the playoffs that might be in a false position. I look at Millwall and look at that goal difference of a -5. They've taken 2 thumpings already from Blues and Coventry. Their squad is very thin. When you take out the players they were missing against Blues and the team they put out against Blues, that's not a championship playoff team. So I think maybe Preston as well. I wasn't massively impressed with them against Birmingham City either. So I think we'll see teams fade away over the next month or two. So I'm actually interested in what Chappers has to say about Albion, to be honest, and where their problems have been, because I actually looked at Albion in the first few weeks and I watched their game against Leicester and I was quite impressed, but I think I might have caught them on a good night.
That probably on reflection, I was actually there that night, and I remember thinking this is a really decent performance. But for a couple of sitters that were missed in the second half when they were 1-0 up, having scored a very, very good goal, you at any level of football you are vulnerable if you haven't got the match sewn up in the closing stages. And Leicester have been probably quite underwhelming this season compared to what was expected of them, and certainly considering what they did under Maresca last time. I've still got some very, very good players. They've still got probably the best pair of wingers in the league. They got the young lad Monga, who came off the bench that night, who was electric as well. And they just forced an own goal deep in stoppage time. And Albion really only had themselves to blame for not winning that game. But more recently, it's been poor, really. The quality of football, the lack of goals that have been scored. They have a real knack of conceding late goals. So they obviously conceded that goal against Leicester. They lost 1-0 in the last minute against Charlton recently. They lost 1-0 in the last minute against Ipswich recently. They lost 1-0 at home to Derby, conceding to Andy Weimann in the last 5 minutes of the game. So that's been a real Achilles heel for them this season. And they don't score enough goals. So when you, aside from the last couple where there have been a real improvement, they've scored a couple of goals in each of their last 2 games. It's not quite Blues levels of goals, but it's an improvement on where they were. That's always left them susceptible to a bit of a sucker punch, really, even when they've played quite well in games. But the performances haven't really, I don't think, justified getting what I think they probably are where they deserve to be at this moment in time, to be honest with you, considering the level of performance, generally speaking, over the course of the season.
Joe, I look at that Albion side that lost at Coventry at the weekend, and we'll come on to how they managed to lose. And I do see goals there. And I know Hegebo's not prolific, but he got a couple against Coventry, didn't he? Mikey Johnson is an exceptional player. Madger is can score goals. Daryl DK, now he's fit. I remember DK scoring an absolute worldie for Barnsley against Blues a few years ago. Illing Jr. even. I think Collier's a decent prospect. Why isn't that producing goals?
It's early on in the season they were playing pretty good stuff. Alex alluded to it at the start of the season, is really why they are where they are, in the sense that they've actually got points on the board, and they are still, albeit in 17th, are still within touching distance of the playoffs, really. They weren't scoring all that many goals. I mean, they got 3 against Wrexham, but they still had Tom Fellows that day who made an impact before they sold him to Southampton. And Isaac Price hit the ground running at the beginning of the season, scoring a number of goals, and allowed Hegebo, who they signed from Brown in Norway, to kind of bed in, really. But Madger hasn't been the same player this season. Daryl DK has only just come back from injury in the last couple of months, and well, we'll see what happens tomorrow night, on Wednesday night. But really, I'm not sure how much Ryan Mason fancies him. He didn't even get on the pitch on Saturday, and there have been times recently where he's been given extremely limited minutes off the bench. He doesn't appear to be anywhere close to the starting 11. Carlin Grant's been injured for a number of weeks, so there's been a real emphasis on Isaac Price, and Mikey Johnson, who you say has been brilliant and has really been one of the standouts of the season so far. To produce goals, and when they don't produce goals, then they're not really coming from deep in midfield. They don't score an awful lot from set pieces. I mean, when you look at Nat Phillips, Chris Mepham, Krystian Bielik's somebody who's been quite close to the starting 11 at times and has played okay when he has started, but they don't have an awful lot of goals coming. It's not like the Macaulay and Johnny Evans of the Championship, where they're real threats from set pieces, and they've had some real issues scoring goals, and as I say, then you're always prone to losing 1-0 quite late in matches, which they've done. There's a graph that went round on Saturday after the game, which is quite damning, really, of their season so far, and perhaps the in-game management of Ryan Mason, which is that they're third in the league for first half, and I think they're in the bottom 3 for second half results. If the game was 45 minutes long, Albion would have won, for example, on Saturday. The fact that the game goes on for 90 minutes, they lose the second half, they lose the match. And that says to me that Ryan Mason is quite clearly somebody who knows what he's doing in the week, on the training pitch, setting teams up, coaching them. But then when things change, which will always be the case because there's two teams that play any given match of football, and the opposition manager changes things with personnel and tactics and system or whatever, then Albion are either too slow or don't know how to react to that. And Ryan Mason is somebody who's a very young manager. I think he's 34 years old. He's in his first job in management, and he's learning on the job in that respect. But I think we're seeing that in Albion's performances and results this season.
Yeah, you've lost 4. Albion lost 4 of the last 6 games now, and I've seen a lot of discontent towards Ryan Mason, obviously in his first job, Chappers. Is he under pressure, do you think, to get results very quickly?
It's quite a tricky one to answer in the sense that he's somebody who they placed an awful lot of faith in very early on in the summer, who they wanted before they appointed Tony Mowbray, and somebody who's been on their radar a long time. He bided his time in the second half of last season. He was obviously on a journey with Tottenham in the Europa League, which ended successfully, and then decided to then jump into management. He's obviously seen Chris Davis do a similar thing and make a similar path into management himself from Tottenham. So knew that he was always somebody that wanted to get into that. Very, very highly regarded coach, but there's more to management than simply coaching, isn't there? And I think we're just probably seeing that at the moment. As regards to the ownership and the board, you've got Bill Cool, who any Albion fan will be forever grateful for what they have done in terms of ending the previous regime and stabilising the club. The recruitment has been largely good, I would maintain. I think people might argue that, but actually, if you look at this summer, Krystian Bielik, Chris Mepham, Nat Phillips, Alfie Gilchrist, Toby Collier, they're not bad footballers. They might be underperforming at the minute when they're playing, but they're not bad footballers. I still think Albion have got a pretty decent squad to go to war with this season. But as regards to the ownership, having appointed and sacked Tony Mowbray at the back end of last season very quickly, to then appoint and sack another manager before Christmas in the same year is not a good look for any ownership, irrespective of the job that they've done off the pitch in looking after the club. And then, of course, in that respect, hypothetically speaking, who do you go and appoint before Christmas, and who's out there and who is going to be, a substantial improvement on what is in place at the moment?
Do you think if Blues go a goal up on Wednesday night that the Hawthorns could get a bit restless?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, they'll be probably on tenterhooks anyway, I'd have thought, because of the way that things have been going recently. I mean, even the win against Oxford just before the international break, Will Lancashire scored in the second half, and Albion reacted really, really quickly. Didn't even give the fan base chance to kind of, get anxious and nervous. They were back level terms very, very quickly, and then went on to win the game. So that's a bit of a shot in the arm, I think, having that, knowing that they have got that, despite the fact what happened at Coventry and the fact that then reversed on Saturday, and Coventry were the ones that came back to win the game. I think Albion haven't responded from trailing in a match to win the match since the first game of last season. So that was a step forward, and I thought that was a sign, at least in that moment, that they were responding and they were playing for Ryan Mason. It's very, very difficult to know. I mean, they might say, well, Ryan, we've appointed you, we've given you this contract, and we really genuinely believe that you're the coach to lead us into the future. There are teething problems at the moment, and there are things that certainly can be improved upon, but actually we want to ride this out in the same way, I suppose, to a degree, that Blues did with Chris Davis, when fans might have argued 6 weeks ago that his job might have been under pressure a little bit, and there were, even though he's just won the league, record points total, etc. Football moves very, very quickly these days, and you have very, very little credit in the bank as it goes on. You have to constantly be winning and constantly be performing, and Albion, just in this moment, I think, just need a couple of wins, because I think the fan base where it is at the moment, one win will be welcome, but then they've got Swansea at home on Saturday again, another new manager that you've got to be wary of, and they need to kind of string a few together, I think, at this point.
Alex, while we've got Joe, you wanted to ask him about your favourite ever footballer, didn't you?
Still is. Yeah, I was looking earlier about Krystian Bielik, Chappers, and I know he's only started one league game, 3 sub-appearances as well. Why is he not? I mean, I know you've got some decent quality centre backs, but why has he not had more of a chance?
It's a bit of a head scratcher for me, really. I didn't see the game, but I heard he played very well against Charlton the other week, and actually came off before that they scored their last minute winner. So had played 90 odd minutes, and this is the thing with Ryan Mason. I don't understand an awful lot of his substitutions. For example, on Saturday, Mikey Johnson's got 2 assists in the first half and takes him off at half time for tactical reasons. It's not an injury or anything. And then, within 3 or 4 minutes, Jason Mullenby gets sent off, and then there's just not quite a quick enough response to that. And we should have had another midfielder on the pitch, I would have thought, before Coventry took the lead. So there are a few decisions for me that have kind of just confused me a little bit. Bielik in that moment against Charlton being taken off in stoppage time. I don't know why you would look to alter things in your back line when you're 0-0 in the 90th minute, trying to win the game, and bringing on Chris Mepham in that moment, and then the goal is conceded, and was there a bit of disruption there? I don't know, but as far as Bielik goes, I thought he did pretty well when he came on against Sheffield Wednesday as a substitute the other week. We know that he's versatile. We know he can play right back. We can play holding midfield. I'd like to have seen a little bit more of him by now, but I think I'd probably say the same about 1 or 2 other players that came in this summer as well. I think we haven't seen enough of Alfie Gilchrist as a right back, who we signed from Chelsea. Collier just was about to get into the team before he got injured, and he'll start, I'm sure, on Wednesday in the absence of Mullenby. So there will be a few involvements, I think. But I think Bielik can count himself a little bit unlucky that he hasn't had more game time, to be honest. I like what I've seen. I've not seen anything from him that's maybe changed my mind from the summer, and that I thought it was a pretty astute signing.
Yeah. I was going to throw Bielik's name into the midfield conversation there, Chappers, to replace Mullenby, but you say that's probably not going to happen.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you've seen more of him than I have in the last few years, but I wonder about his mobility. And Alex Mowat is a lovely footballer who is certainly very, very important in terms of how he uses the ball, but he's probably not the man that's going to get around the midfield the way Mullenby does, the way I wouldn't probably expect Bielik to. Whereas I think Toby Collier is more probably suited to directly replacing Mullenby.
hopefully Ryan Mason won't notice the fact that the last time Bielik played against Blues was for Derby, and I think it was his first game. Did he ever? His first game in about 18 months after one of his many injuries. He came off the bench, I think. Well, yeah, he scored with an overhead kick in the 90th minute for a 2-2 draw. So yeah, he did come off the bench in that game. So yes, no one mention that to Ryan Mason. Alex, let's move on to what Blues might do with their team. It is the team that picks itself, is it not?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially with the game against Watford being on Monday. If it was going Wednesday to Saturday, I think maybe Chris Davies might have a change or two in mind, or at least have to make some on Saturday. But as it's Wednesday going through to Monday, they've got a free week again before Saturday against Southampton next week. I don't see why you would change anything. I think you just stick it as it is, because they've been so good in the last 4 or 5 games that you'd be creating problems for yourself if you did try and change anything.
Yeah, I mean, that answers that question, doesn't it? Just want to say, I know we've been on here and we've officially divorced ourselves from XG. I might be minded to accept the pre-assist, or the hockey assist, as some people call it. Alex Cochrane's pass to Gray for the first goal on Saturday was a thing of beauty, and I feel that deserves some sort of formal recognition. Cochrane, I know you've had your struggles with
this is a podcast full of Alex Cochrane lovers, isn't it? Right, so here we go.
Absolutely. I know you've had your struggles with Cochrane, but he has been superb since he's found his feet in the Championship, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. I mean, the pass is brilliant, wasn't it? And that's something that's come straight off the training ground. But to be able to execute that, I think that's probably, when we talk about the battle between Cochrane and Lee Buchanan when he's fit, I think that's where Cochrane has the edge. I think Buchanan might be a better 1v1 defender, and maybe physically better. But Cochrane technically on the ball can do things like that, whereas I don't think Buchanan quite has that ability with his left foot.
Alex, if you could row that quickly in real circumstances, you'd be in the Olympic team. Excellent. Alex, thank you very much for your time. Joe, thank you very much for your time. Great to see you as ever. And hopefully you've all enjoyed that. It's a big keep right on from, I'm going to say, all three of us.